Hey everybody, and welcome to Let's Look at Ethan Meteor Hunter. This is a game that, while not new, it actually came out, I believe, in 2013. It's new on Steam. It made it through the green light process, and it has kind of an interesting story. I actually read about this maybe 3 or 4 months ago on Reddit. After they released their game, we're just going to start a new game here, and as I am talking, you can at least watch the opening cutscene. But they released their game back in 2013, and they did a post-mortem because the game didn't sell very well. They spent, you know, months or years of their lives and a lot of their money actually producing it, and then when it came out, it was just kind of like, nobody really paid attention to it. But as a result of the post-mortem, it was almost like a marketing play, and they got more attention, and as a result of that Reddit post, perhaps, particularly bringing a lot of attention to that post-mortem, the game actually made it through the greenlight process and is now available on Steam for the price of $8 for its opening week sale and $10 after that is over. What this is, I mean, you know, I kind of can't follow the story from the opening cutscene. This is the second time now that I've watched it. I guess he is learning that after the meteor hits, he has gained the incredible power to manipulate matter and freeze time, which is kind of the central gimmick of what's going on here. It was described to me in the email that I got from the developers. This is just the tutorial here, so I'll just do it and explain it kind of in media res as I play. But it was described to me by the developers as Super Meat Boy meets Braid. Not Super Meat Boy beats Braid. That's a, you know, topic for another video altogether. But it's really not so much like that. It's a puzzle platformer, and it's a physics-based puzzle platformer. But what it's really most like is a game that came out... Oh, that's not very good. A game that came out just a little bit over a year ago now, in the summer of 2012, called Snapshot, and that was, I believe, Kyle Pulver worked on that. He also worked on Jotobots and Offspring Fling. But anyway, that was a game that allowed you to kind of pause time and kind of manipulate some elements by taking photos of things, and after taking photos of those things, you could then move them throughout the environment. So as of right now, you're just seeing kind of standard block movement here. This game actually does become more difficult, but there, I've earned a pause. So what the pause allows me to do is, just by using my controller here, you can also use the keyboard and mouse, I can grab objects from the environment and then insert them other places in the environment itself to solve puzzles. So usually this involves, you know, getting to a higher ledge. Sometimes it involves pushing switches, and sometimes they get very slightly more complex, like this one where you kind of wedge it into that space and then use that as a platform to jump. They do get fairly difficult, even though it might seem like right now like it's super easy. They're actually fairly difficult, and I have spent, you know, 10 to 15 minutes on individual levels sometimes over the course of my hour or so playing this. Do I have one more pause after this? This is a good question, actually. This might not be adequate for me to get up there. Actually, it's going to be totally fine. I overestimated that one. Let me just solve this puzzle, and then I'll get back to what I was talking about earlier. So yeah, even though it wears that kind of inspiration from Super Meat Boy and Braid, at least in its marketing materials, it's definitely something that feels a lot more like Snapshot. In fact, it feels very similar to Snapshot. Although there are some elements, unlike Snapshot, that are way more Super Meat Boy-esque, where you're kind of running away from a saw, or, you know, well, you'll see as we get over the course of this, because it's kind of difficult to explain. We're gonna start on the very first level here. And this is like, it's broken up into multiple worlds. That world that we just came from was our hub level, and I haven't beaten the first section here, but there are 4 of them. So it's going to start out very easy. This is a game that is, you know, maybe half focused on score attack and half focused on actually getting all of the, or half focused on score attack and half focused on just beating the level sometimes, depending on the difficulty of the puzzles. That's what I'm trying to get at. I am sorry to say that, you know, it's a little bit late and I've buried the lead to some extent, but I'm sorry to say that I kind of don't find myself really engaged by Ethan Meteor Hunter, and although there's some interesting ideas going on here, I've oftentimes found myself frustrated as I've been playing it. I think it's got, oh, that's not very good. I think I've found myself, even though it's kind of a cool gimmick, I get frustrated a lot, and I don't think it's necessarily because of the gimmick element of the game. Like, I think that works totally fine for the most part, even if it might look like it's a little bit easy right now. Again, I assure you that that will change. This looks like the play button on YouTube here, but the platforming mechanics in particular strike me as a little bit unsatisfying. We finished our first level there. I'll get back to that, what I was talking about just a second ago, as we move on here. But when you finish the level, you do have the opportunity to see what kind of metrics you need in order to get the gold mouse on a level, and unfortunately, we were not even close to where we need to be there. This is an interesting puzzle, and a puzzle that is a little bit indicative of, I'll start over, because I'll explain to you how I did it for the first time. A little bit indicative of the puzzle design in Ethan Meteor Hunter. But yeah, just to finish my train of thought from earlier, It's not that I think the puzzles are poorly designed. Most of the time, I just find myself not really enjoying the freedom of movement. You know, if you play a platformer, say something like Super Crate Box, even just shooting a gun is fun because of the way that the kind of movement and momentum is imparted to you. In this, I find the controls heavy and kind of... when I die, a lot of the times I feel like it's my own fault, and you do die fairly frequently over the course of this game, or at least I do, because I'm kind of an idiot, I guess, when it comes to puzzle platformers. And beyond that, this is maybe like, you know how people complain sometimes like a first-person shooter doesn't have a jump button, and people are like, that's immersion breaking, I don't really like it. For me, that doesn't really matter, but in a platformer, not having a run button is something that strikes me as very weird, and there is no run button in this, but despite that, I find myself holding down the right trigger all the damn time. And maybe that's my own personal flaw. But anyway, the first time I tried to solve this puzzle, and this might actually be a realistic way to solve it, I don't know. It's not as good as the other option, but what I would try to do is actually push these blocks over the edge and then get them to bounce on that spring, and then after that, just like try to get all the way up to the top. But it didn't really work for me, so instead, what you have to do here is pull the blocks backwards. And I'm a little bit ashamed to admit, but also, you know, it's honest. I actually did use a walkthrough video on YouTube to help me get through some of these puzzles, even in the very early games. So that's something that I haven't had to do for a lot of puzzle games that I've played recently. Even puzzle platformers that I have said were very difficult. Teslagrad, for example, is a game where I got stuck for a long time, but because I was enjoying it and because I liked the kind of experience of experimenting, I just kind of figured it out for myself. Whereas in Ethan Meteor Hunter, I will say that as I was playing the game to get ready to record a video, after a while it did kind of feel like I was just going through the motions, and I was like, okay, just gotta play like 15 minutes more of this so I can actually know enough to feel qualified to do my video. And that's, you know, it's a very unfortunate thing to say, but it is also the truth as well. Like, there is... Oh, let's get this one. There's basically zero chance that I am going to continue playing this in my off time. And that's not to say that it's a bad game, you know, there's a lot of competition in this space, and I don't think it is a bad game. It's just, it kind of reminds me of like Gianna Sisters' Twisted Dreams. A lot of people were really mad that I said Gianna Sisters' Twisted Dreams was just average. Because they thought it was actually pretty good. You might find yourself in the same position here with Ethan Meteor Hunter, but my honest appraisal of the game is that as somebody who plays a lot of... You know what, let's not even try this jump here. Let's go back and do this one more time. I can't even fit in there, so maybe like this, and we'll see if we can get this in there. Yeah, my honest appraisal of the game as somebody who maybe considers platformers to be... Oh, I'm an idiot. As someone who maybe considers platformers to be their favorite genre and plays a lot of platformers and puzzle platformers in particular, because that's what comes out a lot of the time, I think it's just okay, if that makes sense. It's in the, you know, right price point for a game of this type on Steam for sure, at the, you know, $8 to $10 range, which is where a lot of these games come out, some of them coming into the $15 range, but most of them kind of existing in that same space. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just find myself, like, wishing that I was playing one of its competitors a lot of the time. It's an unfortunate thing to say, and believe me, knowing the story of the game, I would love to come in here and be like, you know, this undiscovered gem wasn't given enough attention upon release, but now, like, you finally have a chance to rectify that mistake, but I kind of don't feel that, and I feel a little bit bad about that, and that's kind of irresponsible of me as a critic to feel bad about giving my honest appraisal of the game, but I do feel bad. I wish I could say more positive things about the game, but so be it. You know, this is how it is, basically. We will see some kind of interesting levels, like these levels where it's like a half platforming, half puzzling, I think are some of the weaker levels in the game, and unfortunately they're also probably the majority of the levels in the game. But levels that are actually just pure platforming, I actually find a lot more fun, in spite of the fact that I think that the platforming physics, perhaps, if you want to put it that way, are not necessarily fantastic. I think I might be able to just... Oh, okay. I do want to express a complaint. I'm an idiot. I should have warped back there. One thing I do want to point out, by the way, I'll get back to what I was saying just a second ago in a little while here. But, you know, in a lot of the games like this, I say... or I have a tendency to reward them if they don't really punish you that much for failing. Like, you're going to hit a lot of fail states in this game in particular, which is true for a lot of puzzle platformers, and I don't think that's necessarily an objective negative. Good, we are going to be able to make it up here. I'm going to forget about these things. Actually, you know what? I can probably get that last one. Let's go for it, because it gives me more time to make my point. But yeah, a game like Super Meat Boy, I really love that, you know, after you fail, it only takes you a couple of seconds, and then you're back to where you wanted to be. There are levels in Ethan Meteor Hunter where when you fail, it can take you 45 seconds or a minute to get back to where you were. And that might not seem like a long time, but when you're doing it over and over and over, that 45 seconds to a minute becomes really, really deleterious to your experience, at least in my opinion. We'll see it in a level coming up, particularly called Pogo. And again, I don't think this is a bad level, actually. I think it's one of the... Oh, that was close. That was an idiotic thing for me to do. I think it's one of the more fun levels that I've played. That being said, it's also probably the most frustrating level that I've played in the game. Because, you know, it wasn't like a puzzle that I couldn't solve. It was just I would miss one jump, and as a result, have to, you know, repeat 45 seconds of gameplay because there was no checkpoint. And I think that's a little bit sloppy, if that makes sense. I think it would be a much tighter game if it was a little bit more liberal with the checkpoint system. It might make it too easy, but honestly, I kind of feel like the game is a little bit imbalanced in the other direction right now. I feel like it's a little bit more difficult considering, you know, this is where you're supposed to have 8 or 9 minutes into the game. Oh, okay, let's try this again. At least we didn't hit spikes at the bottom there. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention is that at the start of the game, it does the thing that a lot of platform games do, where it's like, don't be a dummy, use a controller. Like, this plays better with a controller, it says, basically. Or it doesn't say, winners don't use drugs, like the old arcade slogan. They use controllers. And I get that, you know, I love using my controller for platform games. I'm playing the game with the controller right now. But in a game like this, it kind of reminds me of, like, playing Trine with the controller. It works, but I think the keyboard and mouse might be better. Watch out for that. We'll see some more elements as we move along here. You know, another game that this reminds me of a little bit, and a lot of people probably were not even around on my channel. Oh, I thought I could make it there. A lot of people probably weren't even around on my channel back when I covered this, but there's a game called Uzi Earth Adventure, which I think actually just made it through the Greenlight process recently as well. But I covered it prior to it being on Greenlight. Or, well, it was on Greenlight, but it was still in the midst of its Greenlight campaign. There we go. And we can hit this switch and then use this platform element for us in the future. Also, like, it's real sticky. Like, I'm not sure if you noticed this, but, like, I'm holding the stick as far as I can. And I get that he has to walk on that so that you can get, like, more momentum and generate some speed for this thing. But seriously, it's real sticky. It's a little unusual. But anyway, reminds me of Uzi Earth Adventure. And that and Gianna Sisters, I think I drew a parallel between those as well. Oh, come on, you can do it, man. And we'll come back here. We need this element. I think we can just push it, maybe, but I don't want to quote Salt and Pepper. There we go. That'll probably give us enough momentum to get over. Fantastic. Yeah, and I think I compared that to Gianna Sisters in my video as well, of Uzi Earth Adventure. But this strikes me as an average to middling puzzle platformer. And is that okay? Maybe for some people, but there's a lot of competition in this space. And I don't necessarily think... that this does enough to distinguish itself. Like, it's very difficult for me to recommend this over something like Teslagrad, like I mentioned, that, you know, came out recently and is a direct competitor to this game, and I think is a lot more interesting than this game. And I feel like I'm being very harsh here, but to some extent, you know, that's sort of my responsibility. And again, I don't think this is a bad game. I just find it difficult to recommend it for a purchase, if that makes sense. If that makes it a bad game, then so be it. For me, I'm just kind of uninterested, and, well, at best uninterested, and at worst, really frustrated. Not frustrated in a constructive way, like one would be frustrated with, like, I hit the jump button, I swear to God. The controls just feel a little like I'm driving a stick of butter on a luge track or something like that. Sorry, I've been watching a lot of Winter Olympics this week. Yeah, not a constructive frustrated like a Super Meat Boy where I'm like motivated to get further, or even like again, a game I covered this week, Double Dragon Neon. That's a difficult game, it's a frustrating game, but it also motivates me with that frustration. This is the level, by the way, but it motivates me with that frustration to become better at it, and whenever I lose, I always feel like it's just because I'm just like 2% worse than I need to be, and I need to maybe practice my mechanics a little bit more. Whereas when I lose in, when I lose in Ethan Meteor Hunter, I oftentimes feel like I know exactly what to do, but the controls just weren't tight enough for me to execute it properly, and that's a really frustrating thing to have to say about a platformer. But, oh, there we go. Okay, so this is my example that I gave of a level that I actually think is one of the more fun levels in the game, just because it, you know, boils the game down to a very simple premise of just kind of bouncing up here. It's a little bit iOS-y, I guess, but that's okay. I don't see anything wrong with, you know, adding stuff like this in to occasionally make your game a little bit more varied, if that makes sense. And it reminds me a little bit of the boss fights in something like Super Meat Boy, right? Which were very different from the individual levels, with the exception of, like, the brownie fight, but, you know, they fit in the game and they had their own value in it as well. That being said, this is also a level that's very frustrating because there are no checkpoints. So it kind of reminds me of, like, VVV, only if you took all the checkpoints out of, like, a reasonably difficult section. None of these jumps is difficult in its own right, and if you look at it from an individual standpoint, but if you have, like, a 5% chance to fuck up a jump, and then you're doing like 40 jumps, it's gonna take you a while. Kind of feels like artificial difficulty because it's just like eventually you can slip up pretty easily, and you have to be absolutely perfect in order to make it up to the top here because the screen comes up with you. So if you end up missing a jump, you just fall down and die, which is kind of frustrating. So we're gonna get into some more difficult kind of puzzly elements, I think, soon. This is another one that is a little bit more Super Meat Boy-esque, I think. And again, I prefer these levels a lot in relation to the kind of puzzle levels. The pure platforming stuff, I think, works a decent amount better. I shouldn't... Yeah, there we go. I was gonna say I shouldn't have to use pauses here. Using pauses is one of the things that diminishes your ability to get a high score as well, so, you know, if you can save pauses, that's better for everybody, but also, you know, try not to get crushed by a saw. Now, can I go get this thing and then bounce on that? Almost certainly. Oh, okay, that was foolish of me. Actually, you know what? Fuck comparing this necessarily to Teslagrad. Teslagrad's a good game, but this should definitely just be compared more accurately to Snapshot. If you haven't checked out Snapshot, go check it out. It's not, you know, the best indie platformer I think anybody has ever played in their entire lives, but it is one of the more interesting ones. And I think it accomplishes a very similar gimmick a lot more effectively than this game does. And again, you know, this game has... It's not without merit. I just don't know if it necessarily hits what it was going for, you know, in whatever design document may or may not exist. Just feels like decent concept. Execution maybe leaves a little bit to be desired, if you catch where I'm going with that one. And now I'm realizing that you guys are probably not understanding why I said that this game was difficult, because I'm just kind of sprinting through it. I used way too many pauses to qualify there. Getting the gold mice is very, very difficult. Pretty soon we're going to come across a level called, I think it's called Wooden Block Puzzle or something like that. Obviously, this is another Super Meat Boy-esque level here. And again, I think these are the stronger ones, so enjoy it. Well, oh, well, at last. Oh, no. Okay, we'll try this again. And again, there's an example of the checkpoint system being kind of unforgiving. I mean, admittedly, in, like, the first Dr. Fetus boss fight on the forest in Super Meat Boy, because I'm going to use this as an example, because it was used in the marketing materials. Don't yell at me. This is the example that they wanted to bring up. In the forest Super Meat Boy boss fights, yes, if you get hit against Dr. Fetus there, you will take a little bit of a detour, and it'll take you a while to... Oh, I got crushed instead of getting catapulted. You start back at the start of the level, and it can take you, what, like 45 seconds to a minute to actually beat that level. So yeah, you know, Super Meat Boy is a game that's not totally innocent from, you know, somewhat draconian checkpoints, but consistently, the checkpoints in this game are kind of frustrating. If they had been a little bit less few and far between, I would have probably enjoyed myself, I think, a lot more, because it probably, you know, 40 to 50% of the hour or so that I've spent with this has been just retreading old ground that I already know how to accomplish and how to beat, but I have to retread it because I, you know, have no other opportunity. I probably, if you gave me some more time and practice, I could probably get gold there, but I don't have the skill nor the desire. We'll do a couple more levels here. I don't necessarily know how long the game is. I don't know if that necessarily matters when it comes to my opinion, but if you like what you see, I would encourage you to pick it up on Steam. If you like what you see anytime you watch a video like this, I encourage you to pick up the game on Steam. I think I've done a decent job of airing my concerns. If you have listened to me ramble on, and you've decided that you still want to pick it up, I would encourage you to do so. Support the developers. You know, it's a game that... It's weird. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, because I've said, I think, my piece on Ethan Meteor Hunter. But it's weird and kind of unfortunate that the way our industry works right now, maybe it's not unfortunate, because it's like the heart of capitalism, but if you make a great game and people notice it, you're going to make a lot of money. If you make a bad game and people don't notice it, you're not going to make very much money. I think we all agree that that is relatively normal, and, you know, even though it sucks for the people that maybe didn't make the great games, it's not necessarily something that deserves to be worried about, if that makes sense. I can make this jump, I swear to God. But what's kind of shitty is that we live in, or we exist in this industry that is very feast or famine, I think, for game developers. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, stop this for a second. Maybe I should roll this thing down here, and that might hit a switch or something that would help me out. I'm not sure. I guess we'll see. Nope, that's just going to explode. Okay. But yeah, we exist in an industry that is very much feast or famine for game developers. And if you make a decent game that is sort of noticed, you could make like 5% of what someone who makes a good game that is noticed makes. So, you know, I stopped myself from, I was gonna say, you know, this game deserves to make more money than it did. But I understand why it hasn't. But is that okay? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. There's a switch down here. I didn't even realize. I guess we'll put this down and then... Has the switch been hit? I swear to God, I just made this jump no problem when I actually played it through myself. But we'll see if maybe this will help me out here. Maybe I can go down instead of the other direction. Oh, okay. How far can I take this bad boy? Is this a secret area? Oh, there's some stinky French cheese up here. I'm gonna try to get that, because there was some French cheese in an earlier level that I missed, but I couldn't get it. But anyway, the reason I stopped myself from saying that is because it's not up to me to decide how much money a game is worth, right? And it's not up to me to decide... In fact, it's fairly critically irresponsible for me to say, buy this game because the developers are, you know, not making very much money on it. Especially when I feel that the game is not necessarily that good. What I will say is that, I hate this jump. Oh, we actually made it. What I will say is that, it does kind of suck that, you know, if you make an okay game, oftentimes you're compensated disproportionately low relative to maybe what that game is worth relative to another game. And in my opinion, anyway. And that's just my piece on that matter. That being said, don't buy Ethan Meteor Hunter unless you absolutely want to. And for most of you, you're probably not going to absolutely want to. And that's okay. So this is the last level that I'm going to cover over the course of this. I'm just going to rewind time there. There we go. And this is a puzzle that really drove me crazy for a while. For the first 35 minutes, I actually... Oh, that was really stupid of me. For like the first 35 minutes, I actually did not know that you could move multiple blocks per pause, and that seems like something that's kind of self-evident, but I don't necessarily think the game did a great job of tutorializing that was possible, and as a result, I kind of found myself having a very difficult time with this puzzle, but it should be much easier now if I just move this over here. Knowing that you can move things as kind of like intermediary steps that are not final, I should not have used another pause there, but that's just, again, that's kind of a control issue, I think. I let go of the X button, or I pressed the X button by accident because in other games like this, that can just be the place button or like the confirm button. But I have not gotten used to that yet, and as a result, that causes me to waste a pause for seemingly no reason. It just seems kind of inelegant, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't really matter all that much. I think I've already said what I need to say about the controls of the game. We'll move onwards here. The first puzzle on this level is actually the most difficult one, and I think as you get a little bit further and further, it's oftentimes just kind of like copying blocks onto switches, which is a little bit basic, but that's okay. Sometimes basic is alright in a game like this, because if it's not basic, then I have a very difficult time dealing with it occasionally, as we saw when I played Teslagrad. But anyway, put this block in here. This actually gave me a ton of trouble when I was playing it earlier, because I constantly hit my head on that ledge, my friend. There we go. But I think I'm going to be able to get through it easily here. The platforming, again, I can't stress enough that most of the time it does strike me as a little bit frustrating. And that sucks pretty hard, but oh well. What's said is said. So on this one, okay, stop picking that up. Stop picking that up! I'm not trying to pick that up, I swear. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to I think we're going to emulate the same design that I did on our first puzzle. And we're just going to try to create a staircase and also a path to the exit. So maybe like this, and then this one's a little bit taller, so we'll put that one over there, and then this one over here. I think this will work, even though it doesn't look like it will right now. And I think it'll work because we have multiple pauses left. So yeah, I can just do that and then walk out of this, and that'll be the end of the level. So that is going to do it for my Let's Look at of Ethan Meteor Hunter. You can pick it up on Steam for $8 during its opening week sale, or $10 after that. I don't think it is a fantastic game. I would describe it as maybe middling, perhaps even mediocre, and it has a lot of competition in this space. So, you know, if you like the gimmick of this and you haven't played Snapshot, I would encourage you to maybe get Snapshot instead. If you're looking for a physics-based puzzle platformer, Teslagrad came out recently and is very, very good. Ethan Meteor Hunter, a little bit more of a middling experience. My opinions are definitely more mixed on it, but it's certainly not a game without merit. It could be a fun little diversion, but I don't think for many of you that's going to be enough, if that makes sense. That's my 2 cents on the game. As always, there will be a link in the video description below to pick it up on Steam if you are interested. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to show your support by clicking the like button and subscribing if you want to see more first impressions in the future. It helps out a great deal. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.